I'm going to go off on a rant, and this is going to be a design nerdy rant because it's something that's come into the news, at least in my news, in my world. I'm going to rant about seemingly useless, unnecessary, pointless, costly corporate rebranding. Maybe you didn't notice this, maybe you did, but Walmart updated their branding. When I say updating, I would say it is so insignificant that most people would not notice if it weren't for the fact that they're doing some sort of side-by-side comparison that would never happen in real life. Here's our old logo, here's our new one. And I'm going to get into a little bit of why I think this might happen, give you examples of where it goes badly when corporations do rebrands that don't go well, and other examples that I've seen just to show that it's not just Walmart that's done this, it's other companies too. Walmart updated their branding. I don't know why. What they did was change the typeface slightly. It is a different typeface than what they have now. It's a little thicker, bolder. Apparently, they got inspiration by one of the Waltons' hat that they wore in like the 80s or 90s or something. Big whoop. But why? Why does this happen? Why do brands do this? And Speedo did it. Like they changed their logo, which I still cannot see where they did anything significant to change the logo at all. Verizon updated. They got rid of the check mark. Rebrand. Why does this happen? Well, I think in our current iteration of capitalism, at least, risks are bad. I mean, all businesses are afraid of risk because it can impact their revenue, their bottom line, but they're so risk adverse, but so unwilling to say how risk adverse they are. Believe me, I know. I worked in corporate culture. It's all a game of talking about change without ever implementing change. And this feels like one of those situations where it's a corporation talking about how they're fresh and new and trying things. So they update their logo. Yet in that update, no one in their right mind would notice anything significantly different about what was changed. It's about the perception of something happening that isn't happening without doing anything to actually change what is happening. Part of it could be it's a business that is suffering, that they're having issues, that they have management issues, they're losing revenue, they're losing market share, whatever it might be. So they'll do a rebrand as a way to make a psychological impression upon people that things are new and things are changed, despite the fact that maybe nothing has changed. But it looks significant because as human beings, we are visual. We're highly visual human beings, and we respond first visually to what we see and then put a story on our emotional response to that, but that's neither here nor there. It could also be that these are corporations that have brought in some new leadership teams, and those teams want to make some sort of impact on what they're going to do, and they'll do a brand refresh because, again, that's an easy lift, though a costly one, but an easier lift than completely restructuring a business. So they'll do a rebrand to make a mark, to make an impression. It could also be as a means to distract from negative headlines. I don't know if you remember this, but in 2016, 17, 18, Facebook was going through a hard time. They were getting all sorts of bad press for how their platform was being used to spread all sorts of misinformation, specifically around the election and Russia interference. And during this time, they announced that they were now Meta. Facebook is now Meta. It is a meaningful way to try to distract people from news that they may not like, headlines that may not be helpful. I know Walmart is kind of going through the ringer with abandoning their DEI program. I'm not an accountant. I'm not in any way involved in financial things in terms of business, but I can imagine there's also some sort of benefit to the costly measure that is a rebrand. I mean, think of the amount of money Walmart is going to have to spend to update this minor fix on all of the signage for every Walmart store, just on the outside, besides all the things on the inside, whether that's end caps or hanging banners or boxes or bags or name tags or uniforms or trucks or, vans, billboards, marketing, merchandising, so much cost to update this. Why? I would assume there has to be some sort of benefit to that cost that they can use to their benefit, because I can't imagine they would want to do it for any other reason than that. All of these things come to mind, and it goes back to making a major change that is relatively risk-free because the change is so minor and significant. Because I think they've learned the lesson from other brands in the past who have made major changes to their branding that have negatively affected their business. Tropicana is the first example that comes to mind, where they made an enormous brand update that significantly impacted in a negative way their revenue when they updated from their traditional Tropicana to this ultra modern, simple look. And that's because a brand exists as an identifying marker to who you're engaging with. I go to the store, I first see the brand because I recognize the colors or the logo or the design on it. That is frequently the way people identify it. And when they went looking for Tropicana, they didn't see it there anymore because it was so drastically different than what they were used to, that it negatively impacted their sales, that they reverted back to what they had before. This was a PepsiCo problem that they had universally. They also changed the Pepsi logo. They changed it to the swoopy thing. I know a lot of people made fun of it at the time. And they have since then, I mean, they left that in place for quite a while, but they've since reverted back. Burger King did a big swing on a logo change where they made it modern and dimensional and sort of 3D look, which that was a sort of a trend. UPS did the same thing with their badge logo that lost the packaging that Paul Rand had designed and looked great. And Burger King has since gone back to that traditional, looks like a bun, like the Burger King with the bun on top of it. The Gap, I don't know if you remember this, the Gap tried to do some sort of refresh. They didn't actually roll it out, which was smart. They sort of test marketed it for people. And boy, it was remember that gradient square with just the Gap? And people were like, this is the dumbest thing. It wasn't a great brand. Thankfully, they were intelligent enough not to roll it out, but to tease it, and they got a response like, okay, back it up. So I think lessons learned from those drastic changes that have seemingly negatively impact businesses where they have reverted back to what they were doing before. And that happens a lot, but brand recognition is vital to a business success, because if you change it drastically and people do not respond well to it, then you've hurt your business. Now, people do react negatively to any change. That's inevitable. People hate change. People react negatively to change because it gets to our basal response of fight, flight, or freeze, where we look out in the landscape and we're looking for anything different because that would spell danger. So when we confront change in our life, visually, anywhere else, it triggers a automatic response that we aren't in control of because it's, evolutionarily a part of who we are, that we just react negatively. And some businesses don't want to sit and settle and wait a while for that change to become for them to adjust to it. I know I've seen that all in my career with, if I changed or updated design and a UI, people are like, oh my God, it changed. And if you just give it time, they'll adjust, they'll be all right, and they'll change. But sometimes the change is too drastic and too hard that you won't be able to recover from what you lose in how much you change something. That's why I think we are now in this state where any brand that updates their brand, it's going to be minor and insignificant because they're afraid of the risk. But they also, for the reasons that I stated before, might have a lot of reason to doing it. Seemingly none of those reasons, as far as I can tell, have anything to do with making something better for us, the consumer, us, the people who are using the service or the product or the marketplace or whatever it might be. That's where we live. That's the world right now. Anyway, I appreciate you listening to my long rambling rant that none of you asked for or wanted. I'm a hand talker. I just had to get that off my chest. Okay, I love you. Have a great day. Bye.